So the next thing we want to do is, John talked about the ORCiD, and we all know that ORCiD is playing an ever-increasing role in higher education and research. And not only do campuses want to track the ORCiD for their researchers, but a lot of times the research organizations want to use this information. And we need to be able to, again, attach it to the federated identity and manage it. So I'm going to demo that now, linking an ORCiD to a researcher identity. And so I'm going to come back over here, and with a new private browsing window, I'm going to log in to the co-manage that I just enrolled into. So this is going to be the test instance of CADRE 5 safes. And again, you get to see me log in. I promise you won't see this too many times. Wait for my duo prompt. I use a security key. It's nice and handy. So I'm logging into this co-managed registry as the enrolled user, the user I just enrolled in. And what we would normally do is, you would have a communication with members of the organization that say, hey, we've just enabled ORCiD linking. And so what you want to do is you want to log in, click on your name, and then you'll find available enrollment flows that you can manage. And one of them is link your ORCiD ID. And so I can go ahead and I can click on that. And what's going to happen is co-manager is going to reach out to ORCiD. ORCiD's going to make sure that I agree to all of the cookies.
Too many cookies.
That's right. I'm going to sign in. And of course, being a good community member, I need to also do multi-factor for my ORCiD. And after I've authenticated to ORCiD, then that's going to allow ORCiD to send the information back to co-managed registry here, back to CILogon. And we're going to take that information and we're going to bind it with that federated identity so we can manage it and we can send that information around as necessary. And again, we have a lot of flexibility with this tooling. There are different ways that we can collect the ORCiD. I've just shown you one of them. Another common way to do it is to actually do it during the initial enrollment. After we've gone through and we've collected the federated identity, you can immediately send the user to ORCiD and say, hey, we want you to link your ORCiD right now so we can decide if we're going to accept your enrollment based on some of that information. So if I go back over here where I'm logged in as the administrator and I refresh, then you'll see down here in the section under identifiers now have more information. So we've linked the ORCiD directly to it, to the record, so that we're able to manage it and also send it out to downstream services when that makes sense.
And the advantage of doing it this way is that this is actually ORCiD asserting, and you've demonstrated that it is you because you've logged in. This is not just type in a number, hope you get it right. Oh, I accidentally transposed two numbers and got someone else's ORCiD. This is kind of almost foolproof.
Yeah, no cut and paste. Yeah. And then remember ORCiD, do we put the HTTP in front of it or don't we?
Yep.
And the nice way about doing it this way exactly is that we don't have to worry about it. It's very easy for the user.
And now that it's in CILogon, if the service needs it, we can assert that attribute to each service. So this can potentially help with who is using what instruments or services to help with attribution of research and using these services to create research outputs.
So that was linking ORCiD to a researcher identity using CADRE as the example. I know we've also set this up for, I think, Eldaka, Patrick, and Darcy have been helping to set up these configurations, and they are fully rehearsed with all these co-manage and CILogon configurations. I'm really excited about that. They've become experts, so it's really nice to have some other people on the team that can do that. Any questions at this point? Otherwise, we'll keep moving on.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
So
good.
go ahead.
Carrie was just saying we're good to go.
We're good to go. All right. We'll keep going. I'm going to close that, and you should now be seeing my terminal. So now we're going to do something a little bit different. So one of the things that John mentioned in the introduction is that we can, through CILogon, support ports other than 443, which is a technical way of saying that we can support command line tools and other tooling that's not actually operating through a web browser. And the one that everybody cares about the most is SSH, because that's how you get shell access to all those other resources. And so I'm going to spend a fair amount of time. I'm going to have 3 different demos talking about SSH access. And this first one is going to be using what we call device flow. So this is a special type of flow. And you are actually completely familiar with this because you all have smart TVs or other smart appliances, and you want to hook them up to Netflix or these other types of services. And you started that process, and it will show you something like a QR code. And then you go off to your phone because your phone has a web browser and is able to actually do the authentication. So you go off to your phone, you do the authentication, and then you go back to the smart TV or the appliance, and it actually has a back channel communication so that it knows you did the authentication on the phone. And we can do the exact same thing for SSH. So I'm going to, first of all, for the experts, I know there's probably some experts here. I want to make sure you understand that there's nothing up my sleeve here. So if you're an SSH expert, you'll recognize that I have no pre-existing identities configured. There's no SSH key servers here or anything like that. So now that the experts believe me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually SSH to a node I have set up that has this infrastructure set up. Okay, and so you see what it does is it prints a URL. We could actually configure it to do a QR code, although in our experience, people don't like the QR codes when they're logging in with SSH because they're generally sitting at a computer. They're not interested in using their phone with SSH. But it wants me to go to this URL, so I'm going to copy this, come up to my web browser, and come over here. And I'm going to evaluate that URL. And I'm going to use the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I'm going to log on. But this window, I already have a session here, so I don't think you're going to have to, you're not going to have to watch me log in again. But it says, hey, you successfully approved the user code. Return to your device for further instructions. So I go over here, I hit enter. And if everything's working well for the demo, it is. I logged into the Bastion node. And so I was able to use this federated identity infrastructure to actually SSH into a shell device. And to make sure that you understand that, again, we really can do the fine-grained authorization. I'm going to go to the co-manage where this information is being managed. And this co-manage, by the way, is a multi-tenant platform. And so this is a co-manage, the test co-manage in the United States. And you can see we have quite a bit of projects here. I'm going to click on this one. This is the organization where I've got this infrastructure hooked up. So it's a pretend organization we made up called Medium Energy Synchrotron Source, or MESS. And I'm going to go to my record, this user's record, and I am going to suspend this user. Maybe they've done something naughty, and the security person, David's come in and said, hey, we need to suspend this person. So David could log in as administrator and do that. And now that the user's suspended, I can come back over here and I can try to log in again. It's going to give me a URL to go through the flow. Come back up here. CILogon is going to authenticate the user again, but it's going to send some information back to the service that says, hey, this user is actually suspended, and now the user can't get in. So we're able to do that and have this fine-grained authorization and the life cycle, manage the life cycle of the user.